Thought it'd be nice to show how I use After Effects in conjunction with Edius. We did a tutorial on how Photoshop works so well with Edius. I thought it would only be fitting to also show how Adobe After Effects also works very nicely in conjunction with Edius. Some people are maybe just a little overwhelmed by the price and the complexity of After Effects and haven't really given it a good try. But I would really encourage you to take a close look at After Effects. It's really, in my opinion, one of the most intuitive programs out there and probably one of the most powerful programs when working with video. And so it really is worth a second look. If you looked at it briefly and moved on, you really need to take another look at it. If you are considering video to be a career at all, you're really going to appreciate the power and ability of After Effects. And despite the rumors that you may have heard about the latest versions of After Effects after it went 64-bit, no longer working with Edius, I'm not sure how those rumors got started. It continues to work fine. So don't worry about any rumors you may have heard. It does work well, and we'll demonstrate that. There are a number of different ways that I use After Effects in video. A couple of the most primary ways is making nice opening montages for my videos, as well as creating nice lower thirds that are nicely animated. You remember in our last tutorial we created a lower third using Photoshop, and it's okay, we can dissolve it on and off. But in order to get just a little bit more animation to your lower thirds, a little bit more excitement to them, it's nice to be able to have the power of After Effects. And the titling abilities of After Effects are quite amazing. And we'll show you how to take advantage of those. Okay, well, let's start up the program. We have it down here in our taskbar, so we can just click on it down here with Edius still open. After Effects will open up over top of it. And it doesn't really matter what version of After Effects you might have access to. They all work nicely together with Edius. Let's go ahead and start a new project. And the first thing that you want to do in After Effects once you start a project is to start a new composition. So go to your menu and choose New Composition. And here you're asked to define some parameters for your composition. Because the video that I'm working on, the project I'm working on in Edius, is an HDV project, I'll make my composition settings to reflect the project that I'm working on. You'll notice that as you drop this down, you do have a wide variety of presets that you can choose from, both NTSC and PAL. But because I'm working with an HDV project that is at 29.97, we'll select that. And you'll see that it's giving us the correct pixels, 1440 by 1080. And then the next main setting to take note of is the duration of your project. Because we'll be working with title bar graphics, lower thirds, we really only need about, say, 15 seconds. So let's change this to 15 seconds of duration. Now, if once you start your composition you don't have a nice 16 by 9 layout here, it's probably because this button here has been toggled to make it more look like that. And in order to be able to see what we're doing better, we want to have our pixel aspect ratio more reflect the HDV environment. And I like to have my resolution at full. Depending on the speed of your computer, you may want to drop that back a little bit in order to be able to preview your animations better. But I like to have it at full. And that's actually one of the complaints that people do have when they start working with After Effects. It's just not real time. You have to render everything, and it's hard to time things up to audio and music, and so I just as soon do it in another program. And there is some truth to that. It is difficult to time up an animation to music because it does require a lot of heavy rendering, especially as your project develops many layers. Some projects can be 20, 30 layers of video, and it really needs to be rendered out before you can really see what you're doing. There have been some improvements in that in the most recent releases of After Effects with version 5 and 5.5 after it went 64-bit. If you have a decent processor and lots of memory, After Effects will be able to take advantage of that in ways that it has not in the past. And so viewing your animations has become a lot easier, and we'll show how that works in a minute. Okay, so we've got our project started, a 15-second project, HDV, nice 16 by 9 aspect ratio, ready to go. So the next thing we'll do is import some media. So using our drop-down menu file, go to import and navigate to the hard drive and folder where your media is stored. And we want the logo and the lower third bar in this case. We'll open those up. And then the next thing to do is to bring these into your project, and you can do that one of two ways. Let's go with the lower third bar first of all. You can drag it right into your window if you like. If you do this, you want to kind of line up the media so that it fits exactly into your window, and let it go. Let's just undo that. The other way is to just actually drag it down into your composition window, and it will automatically line everything up. So now we have our title bar. We created this in Photoshop. Just maybe fire up what we did here in Photoshop. We'll see that it has 4 layers of kind of textures and grids, and I think we even have a map graphic going in the background there. And combining it all together, we've made kind of a nice title bar. And so you will, as you create these and design these, you may end up using both Photoshop and After Effects. But once we have our title bar designed the way we like, we will want to probably define that further. Right now it's too big and it goes all the way across the screen. And so what I like to do is with a mask, define a smaller portion of this title bar that goes all the way across. And so let's go up to our mask tool up here at the top, and just hold down on that with your mouse. And what I like to choose is the rounded rectangle tool before I make my selection. And then with that selected, I'll go over to the title bar itself, and just outside the left portion of that title bar, start making my mask. And just drag it across to almost 80% of the bar, I would say, and then let that go. So now you're masking out all of the area except what you have defined. Now what we want to do is animate this on. And so let's open up our transform button down here. And let's maybe go just 1 second into our 15-second timeline and create a position. I like to, just for safety's sake, go ahead and hit set nodes for anchor point, position, and scale to define our opening position of the title bar. And then what we can do is go to the horizontal position and just start scaling it back until that bar is completely off the screen. Okay. Now, depending on how long you want the animation to be, go ahead and move your timeline cursor that length. So let's say we want that bar to take 1.5 seconds to come onto the screen. Let's position our timeline cursor there, and then we can just start sliding our bar back on, and you'll see that as we start scrolling it across the horizontal position, After Effects automatically places a new node there. Let's bring it back to that point to where it was. Oh, there. And now we can take a look at our bar as it slides on. Just take your timeline cursor to before the point where it starts and press the space bar key. Now, one of the things that I really like about working with After Effects is that it allows you to ease in for your final position. And how we do that is right-click on your final node and go down and select Keyframe Assistant and choose Easy Ease In. And you'll see that your node changes a little bit there. And now After Effects will kind of slow down just before it reaches the end of the animation. And this will become more noticeable as we render this out and save it as an AVI file. And it'll look much better than just going full speed right to the end and stopping abruptly. Okay, so we've got our title bar. Let's now go after our logo. And again, we could just bring it into our composition window here and just kind of drop it in place. Or we could also just bring it down into our composition window. And if it happens to drop down below our other layer, we can simply drag it up and it will be now above the layer of our title bar. Now right away we see that our logo is too big. So again, we'll want to open up our layer and our transform and scale that back. Right now it's at 100%. We can drop that down. Maybe what we'll want to do is position it on our title bar first. And right now, our selector tool is still on our rectangle. What we want to do in order to move things around in our composition window is go back up here and choose our selection tool. And once that's selected, we can point to the object and actually move it around on our screen. And we'll see that as we did that, After Effects created a node for position. And that's fine. So we see it's still a little too big. So let's drag it down some more. Change the percentage of our graphic file. That's maybe too small. Let's bring it back up some. And when our select tool is selected and our layer is selected, we can use our arrow keys and position that. Now in After Effects, if you have slipped off the actual node itself and start using your arrow keys, you'll see that it creates a new node, and that's something you want to try and avoid. So if you want to make any changes that way to the position, it's best to make sure that you're back on your node and you can confirm that your timeline cursor is actually hovering over the node itself when the nodes over here light up. So confirming that we are actually on the node, we can use our arrow keys again. Maybe bring it over a little bit and down just a little bit. And I think now we're ready for our titles. Let's go up to our tool selector and choose our title tool. And now we can just go down and click in a position that is on our title bar, and we can start typing. And we see that's too small, so let's change the size of our font. Maybe bring that up, probably bring it up to 100 pixels. And we'll also want to reposition that. So let's go back to our selector tool and just move that into place. And if we want to change our colors, we could do that over here. Maybe make it a white. Yeah, now let's go back to the harvest gold. And if we wanted to match up our logo, we could use our eyedropper here and just click anywhere on our logo, and then our text will be the same color as our logo. Now let's maybe also do his title. Choose our text tool again and click down below. And we want to probably have this more like around, well, let's try 50 to start with. Looks like we ended up on the same layer. After Effects is just going ahead and selecting the layer that's already there. Let's try this again. Hit the title tool, make sure it's selected, and just maybe start anywhere, somewhere, some distance from the previous layer, and we'll notice that a second layer has shown up here, and we can start typing. And now we can choose a different size for that. And with our selector tool chosen, we can drop that into place. And if you want to see if it's lining up, just select anywhere outside of that and you'll get a better idea if that's lining up. And if we want to make that more proportionate, top and bottom, let's maybe just open up our layers here. See if we have anything going right now as far as our nodes. And we do see that because we moved those with our selector tool, that it has applied a node, a position node for these. And so let's make sure that they are, the timeline cursor is right above those, and we can confirm that by seeing that they are lit up over here. And now let's choose first of all the title and move it down, and then select our name and bring it down, and now that's just a little better top and bottom. Space up here is about the same as the space down here. Okay, now let's see what we can do about animating these on. Let's position our timeline cursor to approximately that point where the title bar is past where the text shows up, so that we don't start seeing the text showing up over black. So let's get our title bar to about there. So our timeline cursor is showing up. Now let's go to our animation tool. Up here are our animation options from our drop-down menu. And you'll notice that one of the options is Animate Text. As you become more and more familiar with After Effects, you'll see that it allows you to create some amazing text animations and be very precise about how those animations come on. Most of the text animations that you see in the opening credits and the ending credits of movies have been created in After Effects. And so you see it's a very powerful tool and allows you to just do almost anything that you can imagine with text in animating text. But for people who don't want to take the time to learn how to do that, After Effects also comes with some very nice presets that you can choose. And if you want to take a look at some of the types of things that you can do to animate your text, go ahead and open up Browse Presets. And this will open up a bridge and allow you to go into some folders here that will allow you to see some of the options that are available. Let's choose the folder called Text. And let's take a look at Animate In. And here you can see that you have 20 or 30 possible presets that you can choose to bring your text in. A lot of very interesting and sophisticated ways that you can bring in text. Let's go back and take a look at the blurs. And the one I like to use is called Bullet Train. And so by double-clicking on that, After Effects will go ahead and set a bullet train animation to our layer that was selected. So we'll see that we now have a bullet train animation, kind of a blur on effect for our title. Now, if we feel that that's maybe just coming on too fast and we'd like to see a little bit more of that animation, a little bit more of that blur, we can open up our text parameters here, find the bullet train animator, and also click one more on range selector. And now we can by stretching out the last node, make that animation just a little bit longer. Okay, you might want to even just push it out just a little bit more. That might be too long. If you have your lower third take too long to appear on in your project, in certain circumstances may be too long. It may take too long to get up before you have to move to a different shot. And so you really want the whole animation of your lower third to come on in about 2 seconds. Okay, and so let's do the same with the second layer. We could just copy our bullet train animator effects with a Control C, and then go ahead and with your timeline cursor set at the beginning of the first node where it was coming on for the top layer, go ahead and select the bottom layer and do a Control V, and that will add the same bullet train animation to the lower layer as well. Now, if you want to use this bullet train animation on your next graphic, and you don't have the ability to copy paste that effect, After Effects will remember the last text animation that you did. And so the next time you want to use that same nice blurred on animation, you can go up to animation and choose the recent animation presets, and you'll see that the bullet train shows up there, and you can just select it that way. You don't have to go back into browse presets and go to bridge and go through your folders and find it again. It will remember your recent animation presets. Okay, so now we have a fairly... Oh, we see that our logo's on way too soon. So let's take care of that. Let's go to a point where we may want to see it start coming on. Maybe about there. Or we could maybe have it come on just as we start to see the blur effect come on. So let's create a starting node there for opacity. Just click on the opacity once, and that will give us a starting node, and we can just bring that right down to 0%. And then we can move our timeline cursor about 1.5 seconds into the animation, and then bring that up to a full 100%. So it dissolves up fairly nicely. It looks kind of nice, but we're not limited to a dissolve up. If we wanted to do a nice blur on, we could select our... Looks like it's already selected. Select our layer and add another effect to it. Let's go up to our effect tool, go up to effect, and let's choose blur and sharpen. And you see you have a number of options there. Let's go and choose the directional blur. You could also go with Gaussian blur, but let's go directional blur. And then we can go into our layer itself and open up our effects and also our directional blur. And we can set a node here at the beginning, choosing direction and blur length. And so in order for the blur to kind of match up with the text, we kind of want to give it a horizontal blur. And so let's move this direction option to be 90 degrees. And we could actually just click inside and type 90. And then for our starting blur length, let's really move that up to maybe like 200. The amount of blur that you give it depends a lot on the actual size of the graphic. Let's see what this looks like. We might actually want to increase that some more. So let's go back and make sure that our timeline cursor is up over our node, and let's maybe bring it up to 300 as a starting blur length. Again, we could just go in and type it in, 300. And then let's move our timeline cursor more towards where it is becoming 100% opacity. And then let's just change that direction, or that blur length, back to 0. Type in there and hit return. So now it's looking good. And now let's take a look and see what that looks like. Well, we see that blur lasts a lot longer than the actual text blur coming on. did. So we can maybe take that last node and bring it back to kind of match up more with the text animation. Let's see what that looks like. Yeah, that's better. We might want to also bring the opacity node back. It might look a little bit better if we actually gave some motion to that blur. We've got it looking like it's in motion, but it's not actually moving. So let's maybe give some motion to that. We see that we already have a position node there. We could just start it there, but let's maybe just drag that back to before the point where the text animation comes on. And let's move our graphic, our logo, over to the left a little bit. Let's just drag this over a little bit. And then let's move our timeline cursor over to the point where the text is completely on. And we could check that by scrolling up and actually get it very exact. We could get our timeline cursor hovering right over those nodes and confirm over here that they're lighting up. And now we can add a new position for our logo just by scrolling it across. And let's maybe bring it in a little closer to the actual text itself. And now let's see what that looks like. Let's maybe watch the whole thing as it comes on. Okay, let's see. Something's not quite right there. I think it'll look better if our logo is blurring on a little bit before the text itself. Let's try that. Let's move our position, and you can lasso more than one node, and then as you move it, they'll move together. And let's also maybe change our opacity as well so that it's lining up more with our animation. And let's take a look and see how that comes on. Well, let's see what it looks like when it's actually in place before the text actually starts coming on. Move that across. Try that. And I think what our problem is, we've got our animation coming on, and then the blur effect happens. We've got to also move our nodes for the blur effect over, and let's see what that looks like. Okay, and then maybe we can just bring them all over a little bit. Let's try that. Dang. Okay, not quite happy with the way that looks yet either. Let's try changing the opacity. That's a little better. Let's maybe change our blur a little bit more over. I kind of like that. I think we'll go with that. And once you're happy with the creation that you've made, the next step is to export it in a file format that Edius will be happy with and like. And the way we go to export or render our animation is to go up to Composition and choose Make Movie, or Control M. And you'll maybe notice that I've already selected some presets here. Let's go and show how you can create a template so that as you're working with these and you want to send them out to Edius, you can send them out in a Canopus file format, Canopus HQ. Just point to the little arrow here and it'll give you a variety of presets that are already available. And we could actually go and use the lossless, or in this case, a lossless with alpha, because we want to preserve the alpha channel here so that all of the black region of this will be transparent. But since we're working with Canopus, I like to send everything out in a Canopus codec, and so I want to choose the Canopus HQ RGB and alpha preset that I have set up. The trick is that if you're working with After Effects for the first time, this preset won't be there. You need to go and create it. And so let's go ahead and show how you can do that by making a template. Let's choose New, and here you can choose the format. Let's leave it AVI. And really what you should do is create two of these Canopus presets, one that's just simply RGB and one that is RGB and alpha. Let's go ahead and create one that's just RGB. And let's go to Format Options and choose from the drop down there the various video codecs that are installed on your computer should show up here, and one of them should be the Canopus HQ. You could also go with Canopus Lossless, but that will require a lot more hard drive space. And so if you're creating a lot of these, you may want to just use the HQ. And it might be good just to open up codec settings to make sure that you're on the highest possible quality for the Canopus HQ, that it's on the online fine, and that'll give you just a little bit better quality. And I find that the Canopus HQ is perfectly fine. I get very good quality with that. I don't necessarily need to choose the Canopus Lossless. And it saves on file space. And you may find that if you're working on a slower computer, the Canopus Lossless format, if you're working with a number of layers, will become more difficult to play in real time when you're back in Edius. So Canopus HQ should be fine for most things. You may find the odd time when you want to use the Canopus Lossless codec. So let's hit OK, and let's save that. Give it a name. Okay, and now when we choose our drop-down layer, that new template should show up. And yes, indeed, we see it showing up there. So now, as we decide which of the Canopus presets that we want to use, we can select it from our menu. But let's go ahead and make another template just for demonstration purposes using the alpha as well. Let's go ahead and choose New. And let's just make sure its format is AVI. And this time, let's choose for our channels both RGB and alpha, and go to our format options, make sure that our Canopus HQ is selected and that we're in the online fine setting, and hit OK, and hit OK again, and this time let's call it Canopus Alpha. And now as we do our menu, we can go and find, here it is here, Canopus Alpha. And using that preset, we can go ahead and render our animation. But you may want to just check where that animation is going to. And so here under Output 2, let's click on this. And this will show you where the animation is going to be saved, and allow you to change the default name that it's going to give to your animation to something else. And so let's call this James title. Hit save, and then hit your enter key again to actually select the render, and it'll go ahead and render that title bar out. And it's not only rendering, it's also saving it to an AVI file. Okay, so now we can go back to Edius, and now let's, with our bin window selected, let's go find that graphic, James title bar. If as you look at this, the little icon that shows up here in Windows 7 shows the graphic actually being at the top of the screen, don't worry about that. Windows 7 and Edius sometimes get things mixed up. When you actually bring it into Edius, you'll see as we click on it and play it out that it is actually in the right position. Maybe drop that onto our timeline. Let's maybe actually place it in where our Photoshop file was for James. Remember that we had this funky lower third that we created in Photoshop. Let's just bring our new title graphic in and replace it there. And now we have the animation coming on for James that we created in After Effects. And then sometime before we move on to our next shot, we want to just slide that back. We want to dissolve that out. we see that's taking just a little bit long. The way we created this in After Effects, I think we didn't have anything happening for the first second. And so the title doesn't really start till about there. So what we could do is just slide that back and bring this over. And then we could extend out our graphic just a little bit more and slide this up. So now I think it'll be up long enough. Okay, that's not too bad. But oftentimes what happens is once you bring it into your project and you look at it online, you may want to make some changes. And that's one of the nice things about working with After Effects and Edius together is that we can just switch back to After Effects and go back to our composition, make some changes. Let's say we want to have our logo graphic coming on a little bit sooner. Let's select our logo layer and lasso all of our nodes and just bring them over a little bit and take a look at that, see how that works. And that's coming on just a little sooner, might be a little better. And once we're happy with our changes, we can go up to Composition and select Make Movie again. Make sure that our output module is using the Canopus RGB plus alpha. And then go over to your output, and that'll bring up the file folder that we saved it to last time. And just go ahead and double click on the animation that we saved last time. After Effects will give you a little warning. That file already exists. Do you want to replace it? I'm going to say yes, and then hit the render key again. And that will render out the animation again, reflecting our changes. And once the render is complete, we can now go back to Edius and notice that the changes that we made are now reflected in our file. We don't have to go and load it in again. Edius takes note of the changes that have been made to the file, and as we play it out, we see that it is reflecting the changes that we made. Okay, and 99% of the time that works. In the middle of rendering in After Effects, that Edius will be in the process of maybe an auto save at the same time, and things kind of get messed up. And when we open up Edius again, it doesn't quite reflect the change that we made. So just be aware that there will be the odd time when this auto update feature doesn't work when you go between After Effects and Edius. But for the most part, it works. Like I say, about 99% of the times, you just don't have any trouble when you go to make a change in After Effects and render it out again. You go back to Edius, and the changes that you've made are reflected in your file. Well, I think that about does it for what I wanted to show you in this tutorial on Edius. Once we've completed our tutorials on version 6 of Edius, I hope to be able to go back and show more tutorials on some of the things that you can do in After Effects and add that to our tutorials here at ediustips.com. But for now, I think that's it for working with After Effects.